Should we dissect Maestro?
Yeah, let's deal
Like it?
with Maestro, because the pre-publicity was Bradley Cooper is wearing a prosthetic nose. And even members of the Bernstein family said this is perfectly legitimate. He is not characterizing our father as Jewish. He's making his own physical resemblance look a little bit more like that. And you can read on it that, all of that goes through. So that's something where
I remember that was one of the original problems, was exactly that. That was quite a long time before it was released though in England, I
yeah,
think.
yeah.
So we had that initial kind of, oh, there's a problem with the nose, and almost like it was there just to be a bit of a publicity stunt, almost. Not the nose, but the uproar around it
Uh,
seemed a bit
and it's
dramatic.
happened a number of times, okay, where people say, "Oh, this is not authentic." Okay,
Yes,
when
indeed.
it comes to the Little Mermaid, I'm going fictional character. All right,
Absolutely, absolutely. What do you
yeah,
mean changing the color or?
yeah, and actually casting a human being that doesn't meet your expectations for the actor. And if Ridley Scott's going to say get a life, get a life. All right.
Do you know one thing I read recently what bothered me about Maestro is people are saying you should have cast someone who was gay in the role. And I just thought that's so ridiculous in so many levels, because Bradley could be gay, you know,
Um,
because it's none of our business, right? It's none of our business. It's like, why do we even care? That should be nothing to do with why, it's like maybe Bradley is bisexual or whatever. But the thing is, it doesn't matter who's playing, and people are saying, oh, should be played by a gay person or should be played by, it just, to me, those kind of questions just seem, when sometimes people are never going to be happy about anything.
what I would say is, for all of the things that he's done, like The Hangover or playing, voicing Rocket Raccoon, wow, the two movies he's directed are excellent.
They are good. They're scary good, aren't they? Like
Yeah.
he's obviously talented, and makes me think he's so talented the Oscars might snub him this time and say keep trying.
Well, he carried off Lenny Bernstein, and Lenny Bernstein's, relationship with human beings
Yeah.
was he needed to be adored, he needed to be loved all the time. Now, whether it was a man or a woman, there were stories where his wife, he would come out disheveled, obviously having a liaison at a party, and she would have to basically drag him out
Yeah.
and say, you're just going to make an embarrassment of yourself and
He
other
didn't
people.
seem very closeted. He seemed quite. He just seemed to live it, and in a way, I found that quite refreshing. It wasn't like your standard, oh, like he was hiding something. He was just being himself the
Yeah.
entire way through. You're very clear about his sexuality, and it doesn't become a problem, and you can get on with the rest of the film. And I love that about it. That it's just there, and it's not like a big deal. And it kind of becomes a big deal because of the family unit and that line where she says, "You're going to end up as an old queer" or something. That hits home because he's losing his family, and at that point it really becomes a tragedy and I think Bradley aimed for that kind of art, and it really works. But some people would then say, oh, it's not focused on the music enough. But for me, there was enough music in it and enough for me to go onto YouTube and to see some of those performances. It's amazing. You can see why he had so much to draw upon, because there's so much of Bernstein on YouTube,
Yeah.
all his interviews, and you could put them over each other exactly the same. So he's impersonating him very well.
And it's not only that, the performance in Ely Cathedral of
Oh,
Mahler's Second Symphony,
yeah,
which has sort of got a semi-legendary status,
yeah,
to actually be that convincing, seemed to be such a vibrant performance. The BBC covered it, etc.
yeah.
Now, if you look at the range of music that he put together as an interpreter and a promoter of classical music to make it relevant, his Jewishness, I think, comes through certainly on his first and his third symphonies. Okay, there are a lot of things that work around Bernstein, and one of the things not really covered in the film, he held parties and invited the leaders of the Black Panthers to meet up with liberals in the 1970s to try and make contact with Congress
Wow.
people, and yeah, so you know
Yeah.
he didn't care. This is the whole thing. He
Yeah.
was comfortable with who he
It
was.
was. Yeah. Yeah.
I watched it with my wife. My wife thought he was an enormously selfish person from the way it's portrayed by Bradley Cooper, and as far as I can see in real life, that's probably true as well. In many respects, the films we're looking at present, okay, one female lead for something which is clearly fictitious, okay. I thought Carrie Mulligan carried Maestro because there had to be a counterpoint. There was very little that was redeeming about Bernstein's personality. Okay, he might be charming and intelligent and engaging. Okay, but you know, again, my wife said when it came to the point where he effectively lied to his daughter about his gay liaisons, extremely well respected actress in her own right. That's Bernstein's wife. There's a lot of engagement and respect between the two, but you take away her moral heart all the way through, including knowing that her husband is a philanderer with men. Okay. Um, that makes the film so much richer because the performance is excellent. It counterpoints Bradley Cooper's. Carrie Mulligan is first billed for that film, and rightly so. And actually, this could have been cast as her film, either wife, okay, as opposed to Bernstein as the husband, because it's about holding together the family, maintaining professional, and then the utter tragedy.
Oh no. Yeah. I had to close my eyes at that point.
Yeah, right.
It was too realistic. I mean, of course, but it was so. I mean, I'm not a Carey Mulligan fan, and I was just. She was very good in this, and I think if you go into the earlier bits where they're meeting, there's a lot of metaphor used, a lot of crazy, almost like you're watching 1920s style silent movie kind of stuff, you know, with the weird camera angles. But as you go on through the film, it becomes very much settled in. Like it reminded me of like Richard Burton movies, you know, where there's almost smoke on the screen, and it's like you're just letting two actors play out a scene, and we're going to see where the scene goes. We'll improvise a little bit. It just felt like there was bits where he trips up and he goes, "Oh," and you know that he kept that in. I loved all that stuff. But Carey Mulligan, yeah, like you say, she seems to anchor it. But just the performance, yeah, alongside Bradley Cooper was really it was brilliant. It just worked, and I don't know. Bradley created an atmosphere to give her the opportunity to give that performance.
I thought the direction, the use of the Academy ratio 3:4 through most of the movie, moving from black and white and crisp, high contrast black and white. And then you had the more sort of muted colors of 1970s. It wasn't a complete attempt to make it as period, but it worked very well in those terms. And it's only the time you had sort of an HD was at the beginning and the end, which is the the faux interviews
Yeah.
about his life,
Yes, yes.
that it's very much, you saw that in a couple of the other movies, that you're taking it that we resonate with black and white because it puts us into that period. Okay. And you've also got to bear in mind that with Raging Bull and Martin Scorsese making a statement saying, I make it in black and white because color stock is rubbish. And he said, it's not going to last long enough. Well, now everything is digital. Oppenheimer, because I know more about it, I like the most. But I thought, in terms of the acting and the performances, I thought Maestro wins hands down.
I think it made me want to understand what they do more, conductors, because I think everyone kind of, they've seen them, don't really know what they're doing, but it made me want to get to know that kind of music and that art form a bit more, which in itself is a great. Napoleon didn't necessarily make me want to go and find out more about Napoleon. Um, Oppenheimer didn't make me feel I need to find out more about Oppenheimer. I think that in Oppenheimer definitely seemed like a great movie, which I didn't really get most of it. A lot of it went over my head. But ultimately, I can sit through a movie like that and enjoy it. But Maestro to me was film where I'm just emotionally being torn apart in different directions,
Yeah,
and the music, it none of it is too like it seems over the top, but it doesn't feel over the top because it's so powerful. But his music was powerful, so you really felt connected to that character. So yeah, I mean that really for me was the number one.
I would recommend looking at the orchestral suite from his music for On the Waterfront. Okay,
Oh, he did
it's
all.
only he did the music for On the Waterfront,
Oh, I didn't know. Yeah,
right? And it's only a 20-minute piece. You can put, but
on the
just that works very well. Whereas his symphonies are programmatic. Okay, they have a message to him. He's a very modern composer, and I actually think his real forte was interpreting classical music more generally, and then enthusing other people about the music, and
yeah.
that comes across very much.
Wow, that's amazing. I mean, I'm going to check that out. I can see it. It's already on YouTube. Like all this stuff is on YouTube that you can find. Um, but yeah, I mean, look, there you go. We've been through them all. That's fantastic. I think clearly good to hear from a historian's perspective on these things. And there's definitely no right or wrong way, but I think these biopics do seem to tear people in different directions.
And again, it comes to the point that there are times where I'll go and see a biopic and be grinding my teeth because I know that it's just wrong.